Hello.
Hello, my name's Jane and I work for the NHS. Most of my work is with autistic people and their families.
And I'm Ciaran, and I'm Jane's son, and I am on the autistic spectrum, so I'm just here to be of any help I can.
So this is our second video where we're talking about how ways that people are finding of coping during the current situation with the lockdown and the coronavirus. Last time we spoke to you, we looked at a number of questions that people had asked me over the weeks and had a bit of a discussion and tried to answer some of the questions that people had. And today we've come together with a few more questions, some of the ones that Ciaran's been thinking about and other questions that people have asked me. So what was the first question, Ciaran?
So the first one is basically a question that's probably been asked quite a lot, but it's quite a valid question nevertheless. But how long will it last?
And when you say how long will it last, what do you mean? How long will the virus last?
Yeah, that's what I think I mean.
In society, or how long does it last when you're ill with
Oh, so what I mean is in society. Yeah, I guess I mean how long are we all going to be dealing with this? And I'm not just talking about lockdown necessarily, I'm just talking about the whole thing. But obviously the lockdown, that applies to lockdown. It's like, well, how long are we going to be stuck in our homes? So
And what do you think about that? What's your understanding of that?
my understanding of that is, if it's anything like the other night, we still don't know. It's still quite ambiguous, but there have been a lot of estimations, like educated guesses, about it could last for another 6 months, maybe less, maybe more. What about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you, it's. I think none of us are really sure, are we? And I think that's one of the most difficult things for people coping at this time is the not knowing, because we're so used to being able to ask a question and get a fairly definite answer. And because this is uncharted territory, we really don't know how long this is going to go on for. And I think for many people, that's the most difficult thing, because if we knew we were going to be in lockdown for another 2 weeks and then things would go back to normal, I think people probably would find that easier to cope with.
Yeah.
As it is, it's the open-ended nature of the discussion that's quite hard, I think.
We didn't introduce Bella. Just realised.
We didn't introduce Bella. Do you want to do that?
This is Bella, aka Richard Parker, as she's more famously known.
And this is our cat, or your cat.
Yeah, my cat. Okay. She's got some interesting points to bring to the table. So
yeah, not knowing really is a difficult one. Not knowing, and all we can do with that is keep an eye on the news. I guess keep an eye on the news day to day, week to week. And my understanding is that there's going to be a review of the current lockdown situation sometime in the next week. And we might have an idea of what the plan is for relaxing any measures, if there is a plan at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And some people are experiencing lockdown differently. Like some people really don't like it. Some people are enjoying it. I'm enjoying it in a way, but that's not to undermine the fact that it's quite scary at the moment. What's going on? It's quite sad. I guess I just wanted to put a positive spin on it. And
so, what aspects are you enjoying?
I guess just the fact that it feels like a break from just sort of
break from
normality. Right. And I guess my life beforehand wasn't that different, but it feels like I've got more of a license now to be like that, and I've got time to read and stuff, and it just feels. I guess when I had money, a lot of what I spent money on was like going to coffee shops. I just had a bit of a compulsive habit of doing that, but now I can't do that anymore, so I can spend money on books, which is great, which is really good.
So you're not spending as much money on coffee shops, you've got a bit of money, you've got that spare to spend on books.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I find I'm saving a little bit more as well without travelling. So what was your second question,
So the second one is, which symptoms should I prioritise? And I appreciate that that's kind of unclear how I worded that, but what I mean is, obviously with coronavirus there's quite a wide array of symptoms, but I think the main ones are headache. No, sorry, ignore me. The main ones are a persistent cough, a dry persistent cough, and fever. But then there are other kind of supporting symptoms like a headache or a blocked nose or what have you, which are kind of, and maybe some aches in your body, which are still symptoms, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel from my understanding was that the persistent cough and the fever are the main ones that could indicate that you have coronavirus.
Yeah, I was reading our letter from the government the other day, and that lists the main symptoms, and you're right. It sounds like a new and persistent cough, persistent dry cough that you didn't have before, along with a high temperature. I've heard other people talk about maybe a headache and aches and pains, and excessive tiredness. But for me, from what I've read, the two main things are the new and persistent cough, and the raised temperature. And I guess if you have those symptoms, you need to be self-isolating, really.
Of course, yeah. And I just want to highlight as well, one of the symptoms is shortness of breath, and I think that's sort of further down the line. When you have coronavirus, it's kind of a bit more, I don't think it's an initial symptom, it's kind of like a bit later on. But what's interesting about that is that shortness of breath is also a symptom of anxiety. So it could be that you're feeling, if you're somebody who's prone to anxiety, like I am, like a lot of autistic people are, it could be that you end up convincing yourself that you might have coronavirus when actually you're just feeling a bit agitated. As you might be quite prone to. So I just think that's quite important to highlight. And as we were saying, it's the combination of all these symptoms, but the main ones are the ones that we've just talked about.
No, I think you're really right to highlight the physical sensations that come with feeling quite anxious. Because if we're watching a lot of news at the moment, we're hearing what's happening. I think most of us feel quite anxious. It's an uncertain time. And some of the physiological symptoms that can go along with anxiety can include a tightness in your chest, shortness of breath. So just being able to recognise, sometimes it's quite difficult to recognise that that's related to anxiety. But many people that I speak to are really, really anxious.
Yeah, I was. I'm not as much these days, funnily enough. But at the beginning, when it was sort of like just starting to have an impact on this country, when somebody had just died, I think you and Dad somebody had just died in this country. You and Dad was still at work, and I was on my own a lot, and kind of on my own thoughts a lot. So I do empathise with people maybe living on their own.
I'm just wondering, because I get a lot of calls from people living on their own who are feeling very anxious. So if people living on their own are experiencing physical symptoms and they're worried about they mean, how can people know whether they're genuine virus symptoms or whether they might be related to anxiety? It's a really difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would imagine that the shortness of breath thing, if you're literally just experiencing shortness of breath, then it's probably anxiety. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? And you're not experiencing any of the other symptoms. But I don't know, is it possible that your body can react to anxiety, and sort of that can result in you having a headache and a fever as well?
Well, I don't know about the fever. I'm sure that people can get anxiety-related headaches. I suppose I'm just thinking about if you are alone, trying to talk to people about how you're feeling, talk through your physical symptoms with somebody else if possible.
Yeah.
Maybe do that via a video chat if you can,
Mm.
because when you're on your own, things can feel worse sometimes. Whereas if you're able to talk to somebody and they can ask you questions and they can check things out with you, perhaps that might help to reassure you or help to confirm that maybe you are feeling unwell.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So number 3 is, what is social distancing? And the reason why I put this down is because I think, well, it might not be the case anymore. Maybe people are a bit more clued up now. But a few weeks back, when all of this, maybe about 1 or 2 weeks back, when all of this was sort of starting to take place, the lockdown.
Yeah.
You do. I was experiencing a lot of people venting on social media, angry about people not taking the social distancing seriously because they're still going out, they're going for walks and what have you, or they think it's some kind of holiday. And just to clarify, the rules at the moment are quite specific about social distancing. You're allowed to go to the shop and go for exercise. It's, it's gatherings, and it's just making sure that you keep 2 meters apart away from each other. It's, you need to get out though. You need to get out, because I think what hasn't been nice is there's been a lot of shaming, hasn't there? Towards certain
shaming,
people.
Yeah.
And that's from people who don't know themselves, who aren't experts, who are sort of misunderstanding what social distancing is. So
yeah,
it's important to highlight that, I felt.
yeah. I mean, my understanding is much the same as yours. Social distancing literally means keeping your distance from people who are not in your immediate circle or immediate family. And that's the 2 meter apart thing. But I guess it also means trying to stay in for much of the time. But you're absolutely right. People are allowed out for essential provisions and medicines. So to go out and get food, to go and get medication or
Cat food.
Cat food. Yeah, cat food is an essential. And also to exercise. And my understanding of the rules about that is that you can exercise once a day, and you can do that with members of your immediate family that you live with. Other than that, you should be doing it. You should be exercising alone if you're not exercising with members of your immediate family. And exercise can take any number of forms. People are certainly cycling more, which is nice to see. Less cars on the road. I like to run, and there's lots of runners. You like to walk, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
So getting out for a walk and getting out for some exercise is essential, really, for your mental health, and particularly if you live on your own.
I think fresh air is kind of goes hand in hand with this rule about exercise as well. Because you could, if you're particularly concerned about coronavirus, you might end up doing your exercise indoors, which would make sense. I do think just staying in your house all day, that, like you said, that's not good for your mental health.
So it's that difference, isn't it, between if you're self-isolating completely, either because you're a vulnerable person or you're ill, you're unwell,
of course,
then your exercise needs to be done inside away
from
people, perhaps. But if you're just practicing social distancing, then you need to get out and you need to, you need to get some fresh air. You need to get a bit of sun on your skin. You need to, you need to start to feel a little bit in touch with the world, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so clear in that one. So number 4 is the news and rules for intake, and what I mean by that is, obviously, if you turn on the news at the moment, it's all about COVID-19, and you could end up watching it all day, every day. But I would say what might be a good idea is limiting it to about once or twice a day. Making sure you stay updated, but not too updated because it can just end up overwhelming you, and that can cause and increase anxiety. So I think that's my take on it.
Is that something that you've experienced where you've felt more anxious because you've watched too much news?
Yeah, the news. I mean, even now, as real as this issue is, the news is still sensationalising.
Yeah.
And they always have been. So I think that's important to point out, really, and to sort of, as important as it is to keep updated, realise that, you know, the media sensationalises. And
how do you mean when you say that? What do you mean?
Well, at the beginning it was coronavirus was very new and scary, and they were really making a big thing about it, and they're still making a big thing about it. And don't get me wrong, they should be making a big thing about it because of the way it's affected our lives. But coming from a position of someone with maybe vulnerable mental health, that's probably not going to do you a lot of good if you're just avidly watching it, because there's a lot of doom and gloom. Sadly, there's a lot of sad things going on. The vast majority of it will be, at the moment, anyway, bad stuff more than good things. So I think for your own mental health, which is just as equally important as your physical, don't get wrapped in. And this is tying into my fifth question as well. So I'll wait for the fifth question. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much to add really to that. I agree. I don't watch the news more than once a day myself. And some days, if I'm feeling a little bit more fragile, I don't watch it at all.
Yeah.
I try and distract myself.
Yeah.
And I try and make contact with people that I care about, whilst also observing, what we've been asked to do, which is stay in as much as possible.
Yeah.
And protect other people. So yes, I think if you're finding the news is making you feel really anxious and low, then a good call would be to give yourself a break from it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So number 5, this question kind of ties in with a lot of the previous ones. And it is just what can reduce anxiety. And what do you think about that?
Reducing anxiety? Well, I guess it depends what causes the anxiety in the first place. I think one of the things at the moment that makes me feel quite anxious is the very first question you asked, which is how long is this going to go on?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of all the things that I'm missing, and I don't know when I'll get them back. So, like, for example, seeing members of my family, or being able to go out with friends, go back to work, which I'm missing being in work, although I'm working from home. And if I give too much time to thinking about that can make me feel quite anxious.
Yeah.
So what I try and do is not think in terms of the big picture, when will this come to an end. I try and think about what can I do each day to make each day productive, and what can I do each day to do something nice and kind for myself and for the people around me. What can I do each day to make sure I feel fit and active? So it's small goals every day, and trying not to think about that end game really too much.
And that kind of advice is essential for such a heightened time like this. But I do think I would give that advice to anyone really. If it's for someone suffering from anxiety, that's a great thing to bear in mind. Just take each day as it comes. Because I'm someone who gets so lost in the bigger picture. I was doing it yesterday and I was doing it today as well, and it was really kind of grinding me down. And it wasn't even coronavirus related. It was just. So I think taking each day as it comes is. It is a golden rule.
I suppose for me as well, getting some exercise is really important for maintaining my kind of positivity and reducing anxiety. So exercise can make things feel better, particularly exercise in the fresh air. Reading can help.
Yeah, and meditation, if that's your thing. I mean, meditation might be inaccessible for some people. it's not something that I know an awful lot about, but if it's been something that you've always wanted to try, and then maybe now's a great time to start. And I think I did touch upon earlier that your mental health is equally as important as your physical health. So you might think that you're staying safe and kind of doing the right thing by getting all wound up about this, but you're probably not. And I did hear a story about a young woman on the spectrum who took her own life because she was getting so sort of distressed by all of this, and that was in this country, and she was only young, and she was obviously, like a lot of autistic people, she was prone to extreme anxiety, and it just sort of got too much for her. So, and I referenced that story because you know, she wasn't killed by coronavirus. She was killed by her
herself.
Yeah, her health, herself,
Yeah.
her mental health.
Yeah. So I suppose people don't always have people around them that they can talk to, but if you have got people and the worries are building up inside you and they're feeling huge and overwhelming, to talk to people around you, to maybe even call a helpline, Samaritans, something like that. Even just expressing sometimes what you're feeling might help a little bit to reduce your anxiety.
I totally agree. And identifying that network, especially if you live on your own, so identifying some kind of network, whether it's friends or just relatives or Samaritans.
Yeah.
Essential for a time like this.
I mean, one of the things that I sometimes get into, and I know other people do who I talk to, is thinking worst case scenarios. So catastrophizing. And one of the tools that I sometimes use is just trying to write down how likely is this to happen.
Yeah.
What's a more real and accurate perspective on this?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can get carried away with your thoughts. So trying to quieten myself and write down some of the things. How realistic are these? Am I catastrophizing, or is this a realistic fear?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Hope you found those some of those sort of thoughts helpful. We'll certainly be back with more. We're getting more and more questions all the time. So in the meantime, goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. Take care.
Take care and stay safe. Thanks for listening.
Lovely. Thank you.